It's the Great Taylor C. Baker Show.
Hello, and welcome back to the Great Taylor C. Baker Show, or in this case, the Great Taylor C. Baker. I finished the first season of GBBO. Almost. Let's have a dance party show! Dance. Whew, now that I am significantly winded from that stellar dance break, that's right, we're doing it. This is the last bake of the technical challenges of season 1 of GBBO. And we are baking a British classic, Victoria sandwich. Not to be confused with the Victoria sponge. Paul Hollywood strictly says it is a Victoria sandwich cake. No sponges. So let's learn how to bake it. So our first step, true to form, being a very British cake, involves weighing our ingredients and making your measurements based on their weight. If you do have a scale, you want to weigh your 3 eggs in shell and then make your judgment call on how much sugar, flour, and butter you used based on the size of your eggs. I don't have a scale, so we're just gonna wing it a little bit. Classic me. So we're gonna start by mixing 7-8 cups or roughly 10 tablespoons of butter in our mixer until it's nice, smooth, and mayo-like. Once our butter is nice and smooth, we are gonna slowly add in 7/8 cups of sugar, 1 tablespoon at a time until it's completely mixed. Once we have our sugar and our butter completely mixed, we are going to add 3 room temperature eggs. We're gonna add them 1 egg at a time. We want to be really careful about how slowly we mix it in so the eggs don't curdle. We are finally going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla into this mixture before we add in our flour. Bonus tip, I think I may have finally learned why so many of my cakes don't rise in the oven. I don't know about you, but I tend to grab all-purpose flour when I'm at the store. The name says it all purpose. You can use it for everything. False. Sometimes recipes call for specific types of flour. This recipe calls for self-rising flour, which basically means that it has other elements in the flour to help it rise in the oven. All-purpose flour, just flour. So I have a handy trick I just learned to turn all-purpose flour into self-rising flour. Basically, all you need is baking powder. So you need to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder per every 1.5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder for 3 cups of flour, and so on. I'm using 1.5 cups of flour in this recipe, and I added in 1 teaspoon of baking powder so that it would help it rise, hopefully, in the oven. So let's fold it up. So while we are folding our flour into our beautiful batter, we are gonna add 1 tablespoon of warm water. I have 2 round 9-inch greased cake pans. We are going to separate it evenly. Now the recipe I was going off of, I think called for tins that were a little smaller, but these are the ones I have, so there is a very good chance, let's be honest, there's a very, very good chance for me that I'm gonna need to add more batter and maybe make another set of cakes so that they can be bigger. All right, now we have our cake tins filled with our batter. Full disclosure, I ended up doubling the recipe because I do have bigger cake tins. So if you're working with smaller cake tins, the original measurements that I gave you, brilliant. But if you are like me and have 9-inch cake tins, you're gonna wanna double the recipe. So now that we have our cakes beautifully in their tins, we are going to put them in the oven at 350 for 20 to 25 minutes. Bake well, cake. See you soon. Now, while our cake is in the oven, that is the perfect time to work on our fillings. So I am going full Great British Bake Off recipe where I don't need to make the jam from scratch. So in this case, I have my jam already pre-bought. The BBC said it was okay. But if you do want to feel extra homemade and you want to learn how to make your raspberry jam from scratch, you can check out my Princess Cake episode here, and I make that jam from scratch. It's actually really easy, and that was the first time I ever made jam. And it's really fun to say, I made this jam. But one thing we are gonna make from scratch, because it's basically just mixing something, is we're gonna make our whipped cream for the inside. Now, the super traditional Victoria sandwich cakes are just raspberry, no cream. We are gonna add a little bit of zhuzh and make the whipped cream. So all you need is 3/4 of a cup of whipping cream, and we're just gonna mix it up until it's nice and stiff, and then chill it in the fridge until we're ready to put it in the cake. All right, hello little golden brown beauties. It's nice and lightly golden brown, but you can see the edges are starting to separate. That means it's getting close to done. I also, as you can see, did the toothpick test where I stuck a toothpick in and it came out clean, so we know it's done because we don't want overbaked sponge. And now that I'm seeing them, I'm definitely happy that I doubled the recipe. They did rise a little bit, but they would have been really thin in my large tins if I didn't double the recipe. Now that we have them out of the oven, we are going to turn them out and cool them on a cooling rack such as this until they're completely cool, and then assembly shall begin. The glorious time has come. Our cake has cooled. Mine cracked a little bit, but that's all right. That's what jam, icing, sugar, and whipped cream is for. We are gonna put an even layer of jam. The recipe calls for 6 tablespoons of raspberry jam, but let's be honest, I'm probably just gonna eyeball it and do it until I feel like it is completely covered. I love a good jammy flavor, and this cake isn't super sweet, so the jam is really where the sugar and the sweetness is gonna come from. So before we do that, we want to place our first layer crust side down. So the original base of your cake on the first layer will be crust side down. Then we're gonna put our layer of jam, cover that with our layer of whipped cream, and then we are gonna put our top layer crust side up. So the flat part will be up on top. So let's fill the cake. Here we are. The final step of the final bake of season 1. It's not the cherry on top, we'll call it the powdered sugar on top. So I am gonna utilize my handy, my dandy, my new kitchen tool, the sifter. The final Big Paul Hollywood cut of the final bake. Let's slice into this thing. All right, that looks like a pretty even bake. Let's give this British classic a try. That is what feels like the epitome of British life. Simple, sweet, elegant, delicate, other words that would describe British things. I can totally see it pairing well with another British classic, a little bit of tea. If you want to be super British, put some milk in that tea and you have yourself tea time. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe and follow along with all of my baking misadventures. I post new videos every Thursday and I would love to see what you are baking. I invite you to bake along with me. Tag me at Taylor C. Baker on all the social medias and use the hashtag #BakeWithBaker. Bake with Baker. So I can see all of your amazing creations in the kitchen. I'll see you next Thursday. Cheers.
It's the Great Taylor C. Baker Show.